Hello adventurers and welcome back to my channel. Today is a day where we get to finally see the Blood Knight. The Blood Knight is a melee hybrid class. Description reads, accursed heroes who devour their enemies' life, entrap them with summoned shadows, and cut down any opposition with knightly polearms. Let's take a look at the character customization if you were going to create your class for the very first time. And these cosmetics for the gear preview look pretty sick. Blizzard always does a phenomenal job on artwork. Alright, I'm not too big on character customization. We can always do that later. Plus, I mean, we can't hide our helm on most of the stuff anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Let's get into the skills and the gear. Some things to note, this is a base Hell 2 character that was created for test purposes only, and what you see in the game may not be what we get on live. The only cosmetic available to me at the time is Blood Rebirth armor. Let's take a look at the skills that are available to the Blood Knight. We have two primary attacks. The first one is Ravage. Unleash a barrage of spear thrusts and sweeps, dealing 2,654 to 3,604 damage to an enemy and 25% as much to all other enemies. And here is its ultimate effect. Enhanced Ravage for 12 seconds, gaining an additional spear in your offhand that increases your range and causes the final attack to knock back enemies while empowered. Annihilation deals damage. You also gain a shield that absorbs damage equal to 20% of your maximum life for 3 seconds. And here's what Ravage looks like. Shadow's Edge. Wield a blade of pure shadow energy that can be used to slash at nearby enemies. If there are no nearby enemies, the blade will be thrown a short distance. The ultimate ability, Enhance Shadow's Edge for 12 seconds, storing a volley of 5 shadow blades that penetrate enemies, dealing damage for each blade that strikes an enemy. You also gain a shield that absorbs damage equal to 20% of your maximum life for 3 seconds. This looks just like an artillery shrine from D4. Here's what Shadow's Edge looks like. This is the range attack, obviously. Next up, we have Abomination. Consume all your anger to transform into an unholy abomination for 15 seconds, increases your damage done, and replacing your skills with Blood Rush and Shattered Fists as your 2 skills that you have available.
That's recharging.
Mephitic Cloud. Release a toxic cloud around you for 6 seconds that confuses enemies, causing monsters to attack each other and restricts targeting for players.
Still charging.
Sanguinate. Liquefy into a bloody form for 2.5 seconds, increasing your movement speed by 50%. Activate again to coagulate your being, and rush forward, dealing 3193 damage to your enemies you pass through. Shroud of Night. Shroud yourself and nearby allies in darkness for 8 seconds, causing shadowy apparitions of yourself to emerge every 1.5 seconds to unleash a primary attack. Siphon Blood. Continually siphon blood from the prey around you, dealing damage to all nearby enemies while also healing yourself for 15% of the damage done. Skewer. Skewer an enemy with your spear, then slam the enemy into the ground, dealing damage to all nearby enemies and stunning them for 3 seconds. Spear Flurry. Channel a flurry of spear attacks, dealing damage to enemies in front of you. Upon activation, if no nearby enemies are available, you will dash forward a short distance before the onslaught begins.
I don't.
Swarm of bats. Call a cloud of bats to attack enemies for 8 seconds. This is continuous damage, it looks like.
That's recharging.
Tendrils of blood. Shoot bloody tendrils into nearby enemies, dealing damage. Activate again to pull all afflicted enemies to you, dealing additional damage. Transfusion. Fortify yourself or an ally with enriched blood, granting a shield for 3 seconds. Additionally, harmful effects will be removed from the target player and they will become immune to harmful effects for the duration of the shield. Transfusion can be activated again one additional time within the first 5 seconds of the first cast. Umbra Lance. Hurl a lance of pure darkness that penetrates through enemies, dealing damage. Wave of Blood. Expel a wave of blood that knocks back enemies, dealing damage, maximum 2 charges. And the last ability we have is called Whirling Strike. Whirl your spear around you multiple times, dealing damage to nearby enemies, maximum 2 charges. Okay, let's talk essences, which is what everyone wants to see. For the helm, Horns of the Hex. Siphon blood is no longer channeled and now moves with you, dealing damage and draining the life of nearby enemies. Air of the High Regions. Spear Flurry now deals 20% increased damage to enemies suffering loss of control. Gain is Purpose. Siphon blood now instantly drains the life of nearby enemies to grant yourself or an ally a shield that absorbs damage, but it no longer heals you. Shielding an ally will also grant you a shield. Hush. Shroud of Night's duration increased by 30%. Voice of the Crescent. Shroud of Night also increases your evasion rating by 12%. Siren's Grin. Whirling Strike maximum charges increased by 1. Vow of Trickery. Whirling Strike also blocks incoming projectiles. Gorger's Yawn. Wave of Blood range increased by 20%. White Veil. Siphon blood now generates a link that drains power from nearby enemies, reducing their damage. Each affected enemy provides you with increased damage. Let's talk chest essences. Dereliction. Wave of Blood also reduces the movement speed of any enemies hit by 40% per 4 seconds. Cairo Terran Trade. Swarm of Bats damage increased by 10%. Influencer. Shroud of Night now only empowers you, causing every other primary attack to conjure a shadowy apparition to attack enemies. Momentary Comfort. Shroud of Night now periodically conjures shadowy apparitions that grant shields to you and nearby allies. Count of the Eves. Whirling Strike also grants 5% damage reduction per enemy hit for 3 seconds. This effect stacks up to a maximum of 6 times. Warmth and Likability. Wave of Blood maximum charges increased by 1. No More Bygones. Sanguinate now also shatters enemy armor, increasing the damage they take by 10% for 3 seconds. Root Vein Mail. Tendrils of Blood now tethers you to an enemy, immobilizing you and stunning them for 3 seconds. And finally, Layered Aims. Shroud of Night now empowers you and nearby allies, causing your primary attacks to mark enemies for death. The marks explode upon reaching 5 stacks, dealing damage to the marked enemy. Empress Pariah. Siphon blood also converts 6% of the damage done into an absorb shield, up to maximum 4800 damage. Farnam's Birth Mantle. Spear Flurry also causes enemies to bleed for 3 seconds, dealing an additional 906 damage. Swarm Speaker. Swarm of bats now engulfs you in a cloud of bats, continually damaging nearby enemies. Solemn Snare. Swarm of bats now shrouds you in a fog of blood mist, increasing your movement speed and making you untargetable while also dealing damage to nearby enemies. Bats and Men both. Swarm of bats now unleashes a barrage of bats, damaging enemies in their path, maximum 2 charges. Evil Thoughts. Umbral Lance maximum charges increased by 1. Bright Arrival. While Abomination is active, defeating an enemy increases the remaining duration of Abomination by 0.4 seconds up to a maximum increase of 4.8 seconds. Consent to Ecstasy. While Abomination is active, defeating an enemy grants you Abomination's Might, increasing your damage done by 3% up to a maximum of 15%. And lastly, the Numbing Edge. Siphon Blood now also deals 20% increased damage to enemies suffering continual damage effects. For the pants, Journey's End. While Abomination is active, defeating an enemy heals you 5% of your life up to a maximum of 80%. Made to Wander. Spear Flurry now causes you to dash forward, damaging all enemies in your path. Spear Flurry can be activated again up to 2 additional times. Relent Not. Spear Flurry now causes you to run forward, damaging and knocking back all enemies in your path. Oversight. Swarm of Bats now also heals you for 15% of the damage it deals. Reliable Peril. Abomination also conjures an unholy aura around you for the duration of your transformation, dealing 704 damage every second to nearby enemies. Night Flare. While you remain inside Mephitic Cloud, your attack and movement speed are increased by 10%. Castellatia. Sanguinate's second activation now causes you to burst into the air, damaging, knocking up, and stunning nearby enemies. Overrun. Spear Flurry now knocks enemies into the air. Faces of Fading Mirth. Swarm of Bats now also poisons enemies, causing them to take 630 continual damage. Main hand. Coiled Course. The final strike of Ravage combo unleashes a wave of energy that deals 1,726 damage to enemies. The Besolver. Skewer now causes you to leap into the air and slam into the target location, knocking enemies up and stunning them. Reverent Hunter. Siphon Blood also slows enemy movement speed by 30%, absorbing their vigor and increasing your movement speed by 10% up to 30%. Blot Knife. Umbral Lance deals up to 20% increased damage the further you are from the target. Dire Calling. Whirling Strike is now infused with frost, chilling enemies, reducing their attack and movement speed. Tooth Drinker. Whirling Strike now sweeps your spear in front of you, damaging, slowing, and pulling enemies to the side. Red Concord. Whirling Strike now combusts, causing enemies to burn. Bardiche of Below. Whirling Strike now unleashes a blast, dealing damage to enemies caught in the path. Maximum 3 charges. Final Essence for the main hand. Broken Keepsake. When Siphon Blood damages the same enemy 3 times, it causes them to hemorrhage, dealing 908 additional damage. And finally, the offhand. Mercy's Plight. Shadow's Edge now marks enemies, causing them to erupt for 4,000 additional damage when reaching 4 marks. Sprig of the Hawthorn. Skewer also increases your damage done by 10% per 4 seconds. Wound Well. Umbral Lance now throws multiple spears in an arc, maximum 2 charges. Ageless Cross. Umbral Lance now causes shadow spears to randomly fall from the sky within an area, dealing damage to enemies. Blood Theriac. Umbral Lance now throws a Shadow Lance forward into the ground, damaging enemies in its path. Activate again to rush to the spear, stunning and dealing additional damage to any enemies in your path. Wardstone. Umbral Lance now conjures a giant void spear that falls from the sky, damaging, knocking back, and stunning enemies within the area. Idol of Opulence. Wave of Blood now releases a bloody explosion, damaging, knocking back, and stunning enemies within the area. Ear of the Cursed. Wave of Blood now creates a well of death that slows enemies within until they are immobilized. Haying Chalice. After Shadow's Edge hits an enemy, 2 blades ricochet out randomly, targeting nearby enemies and dealing 2879 damage to them. Okay, let's see what some of these abilities look like in a challenge rift. I'm using the move speed on Siphon Blood, and you can hear the sprint noise that I'm getting every time I proc it on an enemy. I'm also running Sanguinate with the stun on the second activation for the move speed as well as some CC. During testing, the legendary essence for Tendril wasn't working correctly until I relogged. That's why you keep seeing me use Tendrils but then not do anything with it, because it's not supposed to be that targeting circle. It's supposed to be an AoE like arc.
What have I done to deserve you? That's recharging. Wait, just wait. That's recharging.
The Blood Knight isn't supposed to have a lot of mobility, which is why almost every ability or skill has control to it, whether it's a stun or a knockback. But I think with the right essences and set pieces, the move speed you can make up for, and you can combo a lot of control with self-sustain through your healing and shield abilities. My essence was still bugged here, so I still was trying to use tendrils, and you saw it, grab that one. It's not supposed to be that essence. The tooltip was wrong, and I didn't fix it till later until I relogged. Here's the ultimate for Shadow's Edge. It looks very similar to an artillery shrine from Diablo 4.
A waste of precious time. A waste of precious time. That's recharging. No, I don't. Still charging. How dumb. Who is my equal?
And that's going to do it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed this exclusive first look at the Blood Knight skills, abilities, and essences for the new class named the Blood Knight.
Precedes you, friend.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment down below. You can also visit my Twitch. I go live mostly on the weekends at twitch.tv/KeysLOL.
Well, friend.
And you may want to hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my upcoming PvE and PvP build videos. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you in the next one. Goodbye.